So Carter, how would you currently define success? When you think of success or envision it, like what comes to mind for you?
Dude, that's a good question. It's a really good question. And I would say it's changed.
Yeah.
It's changed over time. I think that I used to think of success as, especially as a man, right? As the being the provider for my family, being that strong set of shoulders for people to lean on. But it's crazy as I get older and older, I really pay more and more attention to how people treat other people.
Yeah.
And it just, success to me is a full circle. I think there's multiple aspects of life that are required to achieve success.
Yeah.
Whereas I think previously for me, that was a lot more of a tunnel vision, thought process. It
Yeah.
was about making money, doing stuff, having,
It's more worldly
proving.
type of things.
Yeah. And it was a lot of
Material.
selfish, it was a lot
Yeah.
of selfish drive behind that. I think that was more of a lot based on me proving what I was capable of. I just want to prove, I want to show people that I can.
Yeah.
But now some of the things that I'm most proud of, my wife and I have been able to do a lot of things for different charities. We've started scholarships. We've been able to, and like, for example, we did a scholarship at my high school, Monticello High School. And you're only eligible if you're going to go into some level of trades. I think the trades programs are really important. I think for guys like you and I that are, I would say, active people by nature, like, it's hard to sit still. I think that it's really important to keep some of these kids, allow them the ability to use their hands and to use some of that artistic capability and other things that turn into productive ways for them to make money as they grow up themselves and become adults. I don't know. I think that's a hard question. I mean, I know that for me, I think one of the hardest transitions for me, Matt, in this whole process has been really understanding what it means to be honest with myself.
Yeah.
Truly be honest with myself. And that's a really hard thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a really good storyteller.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
I do a really good job of telling myself stories. And I can justify almost anything.
Right.
And so that's a daily challenge for me, am I really being honest with myself today about where I'm at? And am I really thinking about other people's feelings and other people's, positions more so than what it is for me to try to be a taker.
Yeah.
So I think to be successful, I think that's really, and it's interesting too, man, because obviously being fortunate enough to have some financial stability to the point where, I don't have to work.
Yeah.
And thank God, what a blessing that is to be at this point in my life and be able to get some of that time back that we've given away to try to achieve some of that, financial success.
Yeah.
But so many of these things that I thought were really important to me 10 years ago aren't really that important to me all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I start thinking about, where do I want to invest that time?
Yeah.
And I missed a lot of things with my kids.
Yeah.
I traveled all the time and I was all over the country and I made a lot of sacrifices to do what I did. And I'm grateful for that, right? I'm grateful for that opportunity. I'm glad I made the decision to buckle down. I'm glad I had the support from Amber to be able to do so many of those things I couldn't have done without that support.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I want to get some of that back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's being there for my kids and trying to coach or, show up to be an example or to speak in a classroom or, those are things I didn't do.
You start realizing that, time is valuable and how you want to invest it. And you've obviously shifted how you were investing your time, made some sacrifices, invested into the business, looking for the reward of carrying on your legacy, having something, for your kids, being able to provide, and ultimately chasing money, but to be able to provide the things for your family and the ones that you love. And also, your coworkers, the people that you worked with. But as you start reaching that accomplishment, it's like, well, hey, need some time for me, time for family. You miss out on a lot of those things that you can't get back.
Absolutely.
You know, and you start realizing life does go by pretty damn fast.
Way too fast,
some
right?
of them older people that you didn't
We're getting old, man.
are like, they're like, it does keep going by quicker and quicker. But
yeah. Well, I think it's funny too, how I thought for the longest time that, a lot of, as a kid, when I was in my late teens or early 20s, somebody in their 40s, dude, like they didn't know anything.
Yeah.
My dad didn't know anything at that point in my life. My mom didn't know anything. And all of a sudden out here I sit and I'm like, ugh, maybe they did know. They knew a lot more than I gave them credit for at that point in my life. But, I hope that there's people, it took going through some of that transition in my life to understand that I needed to listen.
Yeah.
I needed to stop thinking that I knew everything and to be able to be open to what people were telling me, especially people that I knew cared about me, genuinely cared about me. Right. And, I hope that that's what, doing this type of thing reaches some of those young men and young women out there. Is like, it's okay to listen, like for me going through like a spiritual journey, for example, I needed help with that, Matt. Like I didn't just know what to do. It took other people with other perspectives to show me what worked for them. And same with business. I had to take a lot of advice from a lot of people. And I think that I had to mature enough in my life to be able to understand I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. I didn't know everything.
Right.
And I'm just grateful that that was kind of beat into me at some point to realize that, man, life is a lot easier if I just am willing to take some of that help and take some of that advice.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful that so many people are willing to give it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's signs and stuff like that. It's all around you. And a couple of things that we say often is, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't know it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you have that ability to learn. You have those resources, those mentors, people are around you. And then also another good reminder that I have to do sometimes is you were given one mouth and two ears for a reason. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak.
I heard that a lot as a kid.
But there's a lot around you. There's a lot of people that are trying to give you advice, and and maybe you're not ready to hear it at that point, where it goes in one ear out the other. And there's certainly been times where life has smacked me in the face and go, that's what they were telling you. And it's like, all right. Now
and too, it's okay to not listen to all it. I mean, I shouldn't say not listen, but you don't have to take every piece of advice.
Correct.
But I think it's important to listen.
Yep.
I think that every little bit of advice you can get at least helps you position your decision.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to just go with every piece of it. People are going to give you shitty advice.
Oh yeah. For sure.
I know I've gotten shitty advice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I've gotten some really good advice too, but some pretty shitty advice.
I've given some shitty advice and some things too, but listening, rather than just hearing. And that's something that we always talked about is you actually listen takes, attention, takes some focus, on it rather than, and
it's amazing to me how taking like that quiet time in the morning, something that somebody said to me the day before, that's the moment where it may pop into my head and be like, there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason that resonates.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that time is important, right?
Yeah.
That's
the time for your stillness.
I struggled for a long time with like the whole thought process of meditation, because obviously there's a huge spectrum of what that means to people as well.
Yeah.
And somebody put it really simply for me at one time. They're like, hey man, do you pray? And I'm like, yeah, I pray, and he's like, do you meditate? I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, think of it this way, prayer is your time to talk and meditation is your time to listen. And like, dude, that put things like, wow, I can talk and talk and talk. And like, if I'm not paying attention to those signs, or if I'm not, what's the point?
Yeah.
And that was a big, I'm kind of getting goosebumps, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was one of those aha moments of like, huh.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And coming from somebody that was a very spiritually sound individual, from where I sat, was like, it held weight, right? I want what this person has.
Yeah.
And so why would I not listen and take some of that advice? And for somebody to be able to put something into layman's terms like that I can understand.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to, it's very clear.
Yeah. 100%.
And so I don't know, just the little things like that,
That's where we talked about getting outdoors. Like when you're out here just listening to the woods, just listen to the sounds around you, and you can create that stillness. Or for me,
a
lot of times when it comes is like shower, where I'm just, quiet and can listen. Same time, in the mornings, where it's just me processing the day, processing thoughts, just revisiting conversations, things that I'd heard, like, why did that?
And it can be simple like that, right? It doesn't have to be. I mean, that's another thing that I had to kind of figure out, right? This is stuff that I can include in my already existing daily routine. I don't have to necessarily have
schedule
a
in.
And maybe I should do it a little more formally at times, but daily, as long as I'm conscious, right, of some of that and making sure that it's there in my daily thought process, sometimes that's all I need. And I had another good friend of mine that kind of said, hey, I talk to, he's like, I talk to a guy like he's my buddy. And that kind of struck me too, right? It's like sometimes I just have that conversation in my head of like, okay, man, like, what do I do? Like, give me something. Exactly. It's not a formal situation. It's just a connection, right? It's something that you want to keep open. And so however you do that, right? Shower, I mean, driving in the car in the morning and a commute, whatever that is, but making sure that it's there, and it exists.
Quiet time, that stillness, and actually listen and process some of those things for sure.
And again, something I have to consciously force myself to do sometimes. It doesn't come naturally.
And sometimes I have to ask the question differently if I don't feel like I'm getting my answer. It's like, well, maybe I pose the question differently to self, to God, to the universe, to everything that's going on, of what's this revealing to me, or what's this showing me, or what is it trying to teach me, or like what's the lesson, the why, in it.
Yeah. I love that you guys, I think, have a lot of, the nature situation for me is that's a huge part of my spiritual connection, right? And for anybody that's not been able to be out in a pretty native, natural state of nature where you can see the balance and perfection that things function without human involvement,
right?
That's a thing of beauty, right? There's a level of perfection there that I don't think any human being will ever achieve. And to me, that's a lot more powerful than I am. And that's something that I can really, it's very humbling, right? It kind of puts things into perspective. And so again, for each person, for me, that's where it's at for me. I know for some people it's different things, different places, different situations. But whatever it is, make time for it, right? And be aware of it and be conscious of it. Because I think that I shouldn't say we, but that's what gets easily lost when I'm in a mindset of chaos. I lose that paying attention to the butterfly flying in front of me, or the, what I mean? The flowers blooming. There's so much of it, right? Especially here where we are. I think we're really fortunate that there is a lot of places that, and it gets to be less and less all the time, and that's part of our purpose with the farm situation, right? Is we want to kind of restore and rehabilitate a lot of that stuff back to native natural habitat. We're planting a lot of trees, a lot of native grass, a lot of wildflowers, and just in a matter of a year, 2 years time, what you see happen and how Mother Nature can just take back. And that's something to me that's way greater than I'm capable of, right? It's something I can pray to, something I can connect to, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever that is, I just think that it's easy to, I think, put the spiritual thing into a box and somebody wants to hand you their box.
Right.
But I think it's a lot more complicated than that, right? I think each individual person has to make their own box.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no right or wrong way, I don't think, to do that, as long as you feel that connectivity and you take that time to listen and have some connection. Then I don't know. For me, that's been a really important thing to keep me sane. And to keep the faith in those times of crisis or times of difficulty. I don't think I would have made it through without some level of faith and that ability to unplug from all of that chaos and get reconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good outlet for it and everything, and a good way to give back and restore, and also as well teach and influence your children and others, how to take care of the stuff and respect the land and everything that goes on that's way bigger than you as an individual.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just incredible the amount of resources that are out there. So
anyway, walking on ground that people haven't walked on, before, in different areas and things like that.
Yeah. It amazes me this how much time I can get sucked into, Yeah, I don't know. It's a great way for me myself to separate from, my phone, all the busy, technology that's around, all the distractions. Exactly. It's all around us. So I find myself out there just kind of getting immersed in all the life and stuff that's happening, and getting my hands dirty. And I don't know, it's enjoyable. It's awesome.
It doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't, not at all. No. And I want to do those things while I can, I'm physically able to go out there and use some of my time that I have left to do those things, on something that I think is going to last a lot longer than I will. So at least I hope.
Yeah.